Hi everyone, my name is Jake Norton and I'm in this magical land to tell you a little bit about fermentation. Fermentation is a process that cells use to convert different kinds of sugars into other products without using oxygen. Come with me. I'll take you down the pathway. If you take a look to the right, you'll see some glucose. Ah, look out, a cell! Let's see where it takes us. Wow, here we are inside of the cell. What's that floating over there? Some ATP? This stuff is like the money here inside of the cell. It is used to store energy and can be spent however the cell sees fit. Let's see if we can use it on this glucose. First, we will go through a process called glycolysis. Essentially, the bacteria invests 2 of its own ATP to convert the glucose into pyruvate, along with 2 more ATP molecules, and it creates 2 NADH molecules from NAD+ molecules. Now, we are at the fermentation step. There are 2 kinds of fermentation. Let's talk about them. In alcohol fermentation, the pyruvate molecules are converted into acetaldehyde, a good electron acceptor. This conversion results in the production of CO2 and ethanol. These acetaldehyde molecules allow for the NADH to be recycled into NAD+, and the glycolysis process can begin again to make more ATP for the cell. The next kind of fermentation is lactic acid fermentation, where a very similar process occurs, only this time the pyruvate acts as an electron acceptor to turn NADH back into NAD+. This process turns the pyruvate into lactate or lactic acid. This process also happens in your muscles when our bodies are doing more work than our lungs can provide oxygen for. It is part of the reason our muscles get sore. Both of these kinds of fermentation are used in many different kinds of food. Let's learn a little bit more about them.
What we do here is go back.
Now let's go home and talk about these foods. First, let's talk about bread. A key ingredient in which is yeast, an alcohol fermenting bacteria. Bread doesn't have any noticeable alcohol content because it bakes off in the oven. However, you can see traces of fermentation in the complex web of CO2 gas pockets that develop in the crumb of the bread. Bread has been rising in ovens for thousands of years, and before people were able to go to the grocery store to buy yeast, they made a pre-fermentation starter, a process still used in the making of sourdough bread. This process utilizes warm water and fresh natural flour to create a good environment for wild yeast to grow in and begin the fermentation process. When the time is right, a portion of the starter is added to the bread to give it a rich flavor and a very airy crumb. Next, let's talk about beer. Beer undergoes a similar process. At its core, a grain like barley or wheat is added to a large fermenter along with water and yeast. The yeast slowly ferments the carbohydrates in the grain and produces alcohol. Hops are often added to stabilize the beer and keep it fresh with complex flavors. Before the modern days of clean water, beer was often drank by people of all classes because its alcohol content killed off harmful bacteria. Cheers to that. Next, let's talk about yogurt. Yogurt is also a fermented food. This process is often carried out by 2 different kinds of lactic acid fermenting bacteria that step through the fermentation process at different temperatures as the yogurt is heated and cooled. The bacteria in yogurt primarily feed on the lactose sugars to produce lactic acid, which lowers the pH of the yogurt, causing the proteins to clump together and create a smooth and acidic yogurt product that can be flavored with extra fruit and sugars to produce the product we see in the store. Did you know that the pickling process also happens by means of fermentation? In your average pickle jar, there are two kinds of bacteria, lactobacilli and enterobacteria. Enterobacteria contribute to food spoilage and have trouble surviving in acidic environments. The lactobacilli feed on the sugars found in cucumbers. As they ferment these sugars, they produce lactic acid, which gives pickles their classic sour taste and lowers the pH to decrease the chances of survival of enterobacteria, leading to a delicious product with a long shelf life. Isn't fermentation amazing? Hopefully now you have a new understanding and appreciation of the awesome work that microbes do in the foods that many of us eat every single day. Thanks for going on this adventure. See you next time.